project, and someone who's willing to trade her rights for the project will do it. Because earlier we had this great thing of this is for art, but that ethos was different. It was very different when we made a Malgudi Days, or we made a Vandanandu Kaladali, or even a commercial film like Geeta. It was very different. The entire atmosphere within which we were working was extremely different from what it is today, and I think that respect and dignity, these two things seem to be hard to find, that mutuality. And it's a different generation also. So I think we also need to look at our vocabulary and how we interact with each other, and what are the words we use, and how we negotiate the space with each other and make room for what we are used to, and also make room for the new and what is fresh and what needs to bring in change. Yeah, I'm saying let's be open to all of that. But I think we need to look at, does all of this new change that is coming in, does it uphold the dignity of the artist? Does it uphold the dignity of the subject matter at hand? Does it address the demands of all of these? I'll stop there.
Thanks, thanks, Bhagwati. Although I keep calling you Pinty, sorry, so if it escapes. Okay, yeah, thanks, Padmavati, because I think you brought in, you've reminded us of some basics to say that yes, while the structure is out there, but the structure, of control is also within us, in the family. It starts from there, and I think for women it starts and will continue there. But you've also spoken about the enormous changes, in the industry, where there's a loss of dignity, there's a loss of control, there's a loss of, in that sense, there's also a loss of creativity, I suppose, in control over your own creativity. So yeah, I think in this kind of a landscape, maybe we can ask Beena to come in now. Beena, because you know what you all did, in Kerala, in terms of the Women in Cinema Collective, the work that the collective did, which has now led to the HEMA committee report, and it's very far-reaching kind of recommendations that they have made, and they've looked at multiple. It's not just, they're not looking just at sexual harassment, as you said, it's looking at different levels of discrimination also, within the industry. So what led to this? Apart from saying so if you could just tell us what led to this, what were the conditions within the industry, that led to this, briefly, if you could just share with us, so that will give us a sense of the ground reality.
Yeah. Thanks, Madhu. Thanks, Madhu. Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I have edited a film of yours, you probably don't know, that you did with M.T. Vasudev and I, so it's very nice to see you.
Thank you, Beena.
I've never met you personally, but it was really nice because I did that film many years ago. Thanks, Madhu, and thanks, Bangalore Film Society. I'm sorry I'm not there. I have this injury which is very troubling and needs to be looked at. I'll just sort of take off from where she was talking about some things, and when you say, why did this happen? It's really interesting that you have always signed a contract. We've probably worked an equal number of years, and I've never signed a contract. Never, ever. Which is really sort of pointed for us at a very deep-rooted problem. Of course, the immediate impetus for the founding of the collective was a horrendous incident which everybody knows of, abduction of a very famous actor. Case is still going on, involvement of all sorts of people. So, that was the original kind of thing. But when we started looking and talking to each other, we realized that there were many systemic problems. One is, of course, totally unregulated workspaces. You go for an audition, who's having the audition, why are they calling you to a hotel room, what happens in this hotel room, hundreds of SMSs or whatever, WhatsApp chats happen, photographs, nobody to tell, nobody to ask. Always the woman considered as if she is being given a favor to eat. We also, can you hear now? Okay.
Yes.
So I was saying we have to admit that we were a bunch of, almost privileged women because we were all at various points in our career when we could ask these questions. But we were addressing the problems of makeup women, extra artists, who just have absolutely no dignity of labor, no power of bargaining, and no sense of respect. You see, there's always considered, women were always considered, कि तू नहीं आएगी तो कोई और आ जाएगा. We are not wanting you. If you want to come, you come. But if you don't come, doesn't matter. So this may not have happened to me or, because of the kind of career arcs we've had. We started, of course, like everybody else, but there was a kind of privilege that we had, and it was very important that because of that, we use that to ask the questions, So when we got together, I think the first thing that we did feel was there's no information. How many work in this industry? How many women work in this industry? What is their condition? I mean, we were talking among ourselves and all of us knew issues of toilets, issues of lack of contracts, issues of childcare, maternity, and the problem at that point was even raising this question was considered absolutely, they were astonished that we even said, is there some way that maternity can be looked at? You're so dispensable on that set that even to ask that question was a kind of crazy notion. Now you want us to pay for your maternity leave? Who do you think you are? That kind of. Anyway, so that was the reason why, because there was such a lack of data, information, understanding. That is why we went to the CM and said, please set up this commission, And just a minute, sorry, my sister. Later. So, basically, that's the reason we went to the CM and said, look, we're forming this organization, but one of the things we need is an understanding of this industry. Very interestingly, the HEMA committee was set up, but I think Justice HEMA has another word, gobsmacked by what she heard. I think she herself did not expect the kind of stories that came pouring out. It was for the lack of, because we really also, as WCC, we wanted women to go and talk. We asked for a lot of women to go and talk. So this was the kind of situation that did happen, that Hema was so astonished that she took a long time and she came up with this report, which is very damning of what the situation is. I think the first issue is lack of numbers. There are very, very few women, other than actors and traditional roles of singer or, that kind of thing. The lack of numbers, and the lack of numbers is totally related to the nature of the workspace, because women don't feel safe. And as Padmavati said, one of the major things is that women artists are always considered, you're always considered to be an outsider. right? Right from the time of dancers and so on. There's also a social stigma involved with cinema. And I believe that the man's club or the boys' club actually perpetrated this a lot to keep women out of the picture, other than when they were needed. So, for example, in my own career, I was an editor, and I would find that I would be editing and I'd have all the problems of leaving my child, this, that, who nobody was ever concerned about. But I also had the problem of having no toilets. I had nobody to speak to. There were no toilets in the studio for women. They never expected an editor or a technician to be a woman. And thirdly, this whole notion of, okay, we edit, but we go in the evening, sit together and drink and make decisions about the film, which are conveyed to me. And therefore, what happens is that whole process becomes very exclusive. Now, if there are 5 women, it's different. Then you have to include everybody. It's because you're the only woman that you get excluded from so many things. So, this addressing of the question of why so few women decide in a very literate society like Kerala, where there are writers, there are artists, why is it that women are not entering cinema? And she really found that sexual harassment, lack of facilities, lack of security, lack of any contracts. So you have no rights at all when you're not signing a contract. You have no rights to even ask for payment, frankly. As simple as your own fee for doing a job cannot be assured because you're not under contract. So, I mean, the problems were so many, and of course, Hema addressed them all, and there was a lot of hoo ha, and then there was this whole moment when women felt so empowered and they came out, and there was this outpouring. Surprisingly, while WCC was thinking that we were pushing in the right direction, that yeah, we are making it a contemporary society, we are addressing problems, let's all get together, what we found was pushback. You see, the whole point with patriarchy is what we discovered was, and in a patriarchal feudal industry, what we discovered was this questioning was not welcome at all. Nobody wanted to even engage other than lip service. So there was there was huge pushback. We all lost jobs. All sorts of things happened. WCC became a bad word. We fought in court for the implementation of POSH, and that happened. We won the case. So basically, the WCC journey has been one of pushing the agenda, gender into the, and I cannot tell you, it opened up the whole of my Kerala society. Last week, finally, the government, which was a big move, has organized a POSH training camp. ICs are compulsory. They tell us today that in every Kerala state government department, they have set up ICs. So the ripple effects of this has been, gender is now discussed at various levels. This kind of thing of, ensuring that women are. So I think it was necessary. I think WCC has been very momentous in Kerala society, not because, we've done great things or anything, but just that we put that question out there. What are you doing to the women? Where are your women? Not only women, numerous now marginalized groups. And it opened that Pandora's box, or that the skeletons came pouring out of the cupboard, let's say, and society had to deal with it. So that has been our journey. Not easy, lot of questioning, lot of pushback, lot of suffering, in terms of women losing work, not owning up to be members, all sorts of things. But we sort of struggled on, and yesterday or day before, when we had this posh training for the Malayalam film industry, it felt very good, I have to say.
Congratulations on that.
Congratulations. I think what you all have
Yeah.
accomplished is something, it's really something that has been groundbreaking. There's no doubt about it. I understand your apprehensions, but I think despite all that, I think we're used to that. Like, you shake the
Absolutely.
ground settles back, and then you shake it again. I think that's the nature of things. So yeah, thank you so much, Beena. Anjali, would you like to come in now, to just speak about, I mean, Beena in a way has laid out the broader terrain. She spoke about her experience. Would you like to share yours?
Hi everyone, my name is Anjali Anish. I'm sorry I couldn't introduce myself, I didn't come on time. Okay, great. I just want to say thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor. I don't feel like I deserve to be here when you guys talk about your experience and the work that you've done, ma'am. I mean, it paves the way for young artists like us, anyone in the industry, even not just artists. But you guys were talking about how it's not just artists that go through a lot of things. So I initially started out when I was 15 years old. I was being homeschooled. I wanted to become a director. I still do. But I wanted to start learning how the industry works. And I first started working as an assistant director when I was 14, almost 15.
Oh, wow, that's something.
Yeah, so it's been 10 years. I'm 25 now. And a lot has happened. And I have never signed a contract still. So that's a very interesting topic that you spoke about. So thank you for that. But I unfortunately experienced some sort of sexual harassment when I was 15 years old. I did not look like an actor, so I just assumed that I was safe because I just thought good looking people are the ones that get targeted. But I was completely wrong. I was 15 years old. I just started working as an assistant director. It was very difficult because nobody from my family is in the film industry. So I had to really push to kind of just say, please don't pay me. Don't do anything. I'll get you coffee. I'll get you anything. At one point, I told the director, I'll clean the toilet if you want. Just let me be there. And I heard something that has still stuck with me is that if I have a female assistant director, I have to make sure that it's a safe environment. Well, shouldn't you anyway? And it would be more expensive to have a female assistant director because they'd have to give me a room. This is what was told to me by many, many directors. So I was very free. I wanted to work on films. I was being homeschooled. I approached anyone that I possibly could with the help of my parents, somehow through some connection. So everyone that I met was always complaining about how it was an extra task for them to have a female assistant director. And that's how I got into the industry, and I was consistently told that it's a man's world. Even as of yesterday, I was told it's a man's world. No, it's not. It's my world too. I'm here. I'm working. And when I was 15, I somehow got to work on a film, and I was told I was wearing jeans and a shirt inside like I am today and an over jacket. And I was told not to wear a tight shirt on the inside. I was 15 because it was distracting the other assistant directors. But these guys can wear sleeveless shirts, they can wear shorts, I can see their knees, I can see their calves, right? And that was when I realized, okay, it's not going to go my way and it's not going to be easy. But because I was so passionate about my work, I decided to move from Bangalore to Mumbai. I worked in the Hindi film industry as an assistant director for a couple of years. And that was when I first experienced someone hitting on me. I thought, okay, I'm 15, I'm 16. So someone my age is gonna probably hit on me if they think I'm attractive. But this was a almost 50, 60-year-old action director who was working on a film that I was working on. And he was like, I just feel like you can be an actress. And he fully built me up. And I was like, oh my god, maybe I can. And then he told me, come to my hotel. I thought, okay, he wants to discuss film stuff or a script or something like that. Then I went to the lobby of the hotel and I was like, so I'm here. He's like, come up. and he gave me his room number. And I just like, you know, they say the spidey sense was tingling. My spidey sense was tingling. And I was like, no, sir, I'm not comfortable. Can we please meet downstairs? He's like, why not? Like, do you think I'm going to do something to you? And he got fully passive aggressive and he yelled at me. He said, it's get your mind out of the gutter because I'm not going to do anything. I don't want to be seen by anyone downstairs, so just come to my room. And that was the first time that I understood that even if the person is wrong, they will blame you for it. And even till date, I see that. And apart from that, there have been multiple occasions where I've been propositioned for work, and it's really sad because, like you said, they act like they're doing us a favor. Am I not bringing anything to the table? So unless I give you something in return, I'm not worthy. I don't bring my talent, I don't bring my hard work, I don't bring my looks. I don't bring the things that I've worked so hard for onto the table, except for the fact that I'm a woman. And I could be useful to you for other reasons. And actually just recently, so I have a film that just released on Friday. It's called Manada Kadalu. It's by a director called Yogaraj Bhatt. So I had to wait for about 3 to almost 4 years for my first film because I was being very picky about my projects. And of course, I've gotten so many offers where it's like, come to Dubai, we're going to Dubai, let's talk about the film in Dubai. I'll get you a private jet, come with us. Why? Come in, can we not discuss it here? And there have been so many instances like that, but recently, I've been getting a lot of praise for my performance in the film. So someone came up to me at the premiere and they were like, oh my god, you've done such a wonderful job, you're the next Rakul Preet Singh. I was like, okay, thank you. And he's like, yeah, I mean, she's given you way, right? I'm like, why has she given me way? Because she's married now. So she's married, so that means there's a space for an unmarried young actress. And I was like, so wait, like if I get married tomorrow, so I'm of no value? They're like, no, I mean, once you're married, you're done, right? So I don't have talent, I don't have looks as soon as I'm married. So unfortunately, consistently, young actors today are told that it's a man's world and I should just accept it. And especially with instances where someone has harassed me, or honestly, many big actors in our industry have propositioned me in ways that I didn't even understand. Like, they would confuse me. It's not even straight up anymore. It's like, oh my god, you'd be so great in the film, like come, let's discuss it. And then you would be so excited to work with such a profound person. And you go meet them and they're like, yeah, you know, you're a good dancer, you're a good actor, you look good, you worked really hard. And then I'm like, okay, I'm like, can I audition? No, you don't need to audition, just come for dinner. And they'll cook me dinner and they'll force me to drink. I don't drink alcohol usually, so it's always like, drink. And I'm like, I don't want to drink. And then I've paid, like I've just caved sometimes and I'm like, okay, I'll have a drink. That one drink, I've realized that 2-3 occasions, without my knowledge, they keep topping up my own drink when I'm not comfortable with it. And once an actor, I don't want to say who, but an actor, similar situation happened and I was like, I want to go home. I texted my mom like, please call me and tell me to come home right now so I can put on speaker. She called me and he's like, there's no way I can allow you to go home and you can't drive when you're drunk. And he wanted to drive me when he was drunk. And he put his hand on me like this. And he's like, I'll drop you, don't worry about it. And there have been so many occasions, but it's really sad that it's come to this point and they consistently tell you it's a man's world and you just have to deal with it. Just because it's my dream to be in the industry, I should just deal with it. And now they've started using this thing that's like, oh my god, she's going to say me too. Oh my god, she's going to put a case on me. Then don't do anything like that. It's very, very easy to make young women uncomfortable, and it's very easy to tell them to shut up because, like you said, it's very easy to replace us. I have been replaced in multiple films because I threw a tantrum. But when a man speaks up for himself, it's not a tantrum. When I speak up for myself, it's a tantrum. I'm supposed to be soft-spoken. I'm supposed to be docile and fragile and speak sweetly, even if I'm angry. It doesn't matter. But, for example, recently, an actor was told that he's come late. And he was like, yeah, so what? Like, I know I have this thing or whatever. I was coming with him. Like, I was literally with him. And I was yelled at because I came late. Right next to him. not he, me. So consistently we were told, right, to keep quiet, and we were preparing for some uh, interviews that we were doing for our film, and one of the media persons, they just came and spoke to me, and they were like, okay, so these are the type of questions we're going to ask you, just be prepared, just speak in Kannada and be eloquent. I was like, yeah, sure, sure. And he was like, don't talk too much, because men don't like women that talk too much. Don't give your opinions. I know you're a very opinionated girl, I can see it. Just don't talk too much. The lesser you talk, the better it is. And don't tell anyone you're in a relationship if you are in. And don't talk about women at all, because so I've studied law. I'm very, very outspoken. Like I'm like I take great pride in being outspoken because I have every right to be. So everyone finds it. They kind of find it troubling to them that I am outspoken and I stand up for myself. So it was pretty funny that recently I was told to keep quiet because I'm more attractive when I'm quiet. So yeah, so that's it. I mean, there's a lot more, but I don't want to go on and on.
Thank you so much, Anjali. I think you really brought out all the various, the visible and invisible, kind of.
Am I still
aspects.
attractive?
In this space, you don't have to be worried about the answer to that question or even asking that question. You are accepted for what you are, attractive, including. Yeah. So yeah, I think in a way you really brought alive what Beena was talking about. In terms of the situation within the industry. I think we'll come back to both of you and to three of you for follow-up questions. But let's do the first round. So Umang. You occupy a different kind of a space. I mean, yesterday also we had this, mainstream cinema, and you occupy, I think, more the documentary and alternative space. Yet you have been, I think, you are part of the industry in that sense. So yes, if you could also speak about your experience, and I, as Jessica was saying, that you have been part of this slut walk and you've organized, something in Delhi. So if you could speak a little about your own experience of engaging with issues of discrimination within the industry.
Yeah, thank you. Really honored to be here. I'm very happy. Actually, it's after a long time that I'm able to engage in some feminist discourse. So I'm truly relieved hearing everyone. And I have actually, I think the biography of mine that's been used is from a few years ago while I was doing only independent films. But for the past few years, I have actually been working in the mainstream industry in Bombay. So a lot of resonance from what Beena and Anjali spoke about, and I'd especially like to take off from where Anjali spoke about ADs and my observation in working from small to large scale sets is I think when we talk about patriarchy, we do sort of come down to power. And a film set is essentially, I think, it's when we talk about dignity and the kind of like this general, right to safety and dignity for everyone involved on a set. I think what it gets weighed against for people in power and producers, especially on a set, because a set is a per day cost, is the amount of money that you're investing. And I think the mindset that I have seen is that is so paramount that everything else becomes negotiable, right? Like my first observation on a very small set of an AD who, I was kind of leading that team at that time, but a young AD was made to feel uncomfortable by an art director because he stared at her and he really stared at her and he was making everyone a bit uncomfortable. It wasn't really something which was doubtful, it was quite evident. But when the AD spoke up about it, the producer at that point was not keen on pissing off his art director who had control over of running the set essentially, right? The art needs to be set up on time, we cannot afford delays, and the art director, he cannot leave the set right now, we need him. So the AD was asked to kind of stay out of his eye line for the next 2 days, and we deal with it after we shoot khatam hone do, essentially, because shoot is every minute is money. And I think the reason, of course, why these things become negotiable. As one of the things that we're trying to talk about is the lack of a collective, right? Um, what I have observed in places like Bombay is, I mean, of course, it's very much needed, but there are many groups in Bombay that are unionized, like squad boys, like dressing set people. And what happens, what the advantage that the collective gives them is to be able to hold their labor and dignity in tandem with the cost, because I think that's the only thing that, I mean, it's been so frustrating, but I've just found, especially working in the mainstream corporate spaces, that you do not get to negotiate ideology against money. You need to have, which is why the need of collectivization is so important, because if you're unionized, if you're collectivized, then I am not asking you to please be considerate of my requirements. Then I'm telling you that if you do not do this, then all the women of the sect, then your sect gets locked down tomorrow. We will not come. We will, that's what happens, like art labor. And of course, I mean, I'm saying again, this is also a very vulnerable group, people who work in setting and spot. But it helps, and it's so, their labor is so vulnerable because you can easily make a 12-hour shift, a 14-hour shift, and say, "Arey, sorry, adjust kar le, this and that." But because they're unionized, they have rules that if you extend more than half an hour, extra shift applies. So that's money. So the producer has, it's their dignity is weighed against money. And I think until that happens, the fact of the matter is that these repeated, I mean, the amount of, and you spoke about the layers of sexism that kind of exists. So one is obviously the lack of safety, and people, seeing women as an additional accountability and additional cost in terms of, oh, I am shooting in RA colony and it's a night shift. Abhi all these ladies, inke liye gaadi arrange karna padega to send them back. That's an extra cost, and all these things become like really things that kind of count against us. And then again, like speaking of AD teams, another observation or another aspect outside of safety, where safety and the dignity gets negotiated because or becomes secondary to the cost that it involves. And of course, there is a lack of commitment in general to these ideas. Otherwise, if otherwise there would be. I mean, these are not big costs. Like providing an extra car so that women can be dropped off is not, on a big set is really not something. There are many other costs like expensive coffee and sushi that you're offering your actors, which which would probably cost more. So it's about the commitment, which is obviously lacking. The other thing is, and I think these are all interrelated, but I would also like to share my observations of the multiple layers in which sexism exists, outside of the fact that we are not committed to safety and dignity, is things like in a composition of an AD team. Now you would always have women, but that woman, if there is one, would always be the costume making. So you want to get a costume, maybe go एक लड़की. I mean, I was recently involved in a big fiction production, and it was kind of my first, and I was in a powerful position, but I was not in charge of composing the AD team, but I did definitely have the right to poke in it, which I did. But of course, there was, it was a bunch of women, a bunch of men, good men. I mean, again, like, I think the thing to understand and the way I try to deal with these situations is to not, and maybe I try to not get angry very fast now, only for the reason that I don't know, I have been for very long, and I'm trying to find smarter ways to, which may take us further. And one of my, again, so probably not, again, like a group, the first lady who was formulating this team was like, and I was like, why are you hiring all these guys? Like, can't you diversify? I gave him phone numbers and contacts of, just to have a diverse team again. And that was my personal commitment, which nobody cared about. Like, why? I mean, see, we are going to hire the best person for the job, is the, I mean, again, like I have, it's so triggering still, but like, whenever you talk about, I mean, so yeah, I mean, you could still have the best person for the job, but can you, I mean, there can be two best people for the job, I mean, it's being an AD, it's not like there is It's not like there is only one best person for the job, right? So that lack of commitment obviously exists. But costume AD, he said that that has to be a girl because girls understand this better. And then I think there was an opportunity for an intern AD who was going to handle extras and juniors. And I was like, why don't you hire a girl for that? He's like, no, 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 this has to be a boy because these guys don't listen to girls. So this, and of course I've seen women break through that. I mean, there are great first ladies who are women, which is also kind of a tough job, which was not initially, and I still not. I don't think the traditional producers would really prefer women doing those jobs because it's a lot of hustle. You require, you need, I don't know, you need a little bit of that. You need to be running the set with power, and those are again roles which traditional producers would not prefer women doing. But there are women who've kind of broken through that, thankfully, because I don't understand what their reservations are. I've seen women run sets perfectly, but it is this sexism of even when you come to the table, the kind of responsibility that you will be assigned, and I've especially seen that even in corporate setups, that no matter the level of power you're in, whether you are the client or the provider of the service, why do men not make notes? Is like something which is so irritating for me. Like whether I am the producer or the writer or the junior, whether I'm in a senior position or in a junior position, I will make notes. And I've seen this in a meeting room where I have a man who is probably a bit younger to me in the same position, slightly higher, slightly lower. Why don't you make the notes and send them across? And why there is this additional care work, the secretarial work, which is kind of assigned unfairly to women in workplaces. And I would think this is probably across the board in industries. But it is it is this kind of lack of commitment, lack of awareness, uh, to kind of be sensitive about certain things. And then there is this default relegation. I mean, we've come out of the home, plus somehow we are still given this, mother of the team. We even within the workplace, there is a gendered kind of flow of events which happens sometimes by such a default that you wouldn't realize it for the longest time that, hey man, can you send a meeting invite for once? You have the same computer as mine. Like why if we both decided to have a meeting, is it always me who's sending the meeting invite? So yeah, and I think, I mean, in
Umang,
the
can I just interrupt you? If you can just, because we just want to keep open out the
yeah.
floor for any questions. So I'm sorry to disrupt you, but if you could
No,
just,
no, no. But I was just wrapping up. But yeah, those are kind of my observations. They kind of exist across the board. I've seen it in casting. You cannot. You've already cast one dark woman. Do you want to? How can you think of casting another? So all these things. A lot of them are sort of default settings. Like I think we speak about sexual harassment at one level where people, yeah, people, producers may not be interested enough to invest, but there is still that thing that, okay, if it's these are not things which one can openly kind of refute at the standard. Oh, nee, I don't care about this. But I think there is this casual sexism which exists, which is even, I think we are quite far away from discussing and bringing to the table, and even have people acknowledge.
yeah, thank you so much, Umang. Yeah, I think you have, really, you've summarized, and I think you've summarized the whole issue of, not just casual sexism, but structured sexism, within the industry, So, yeah, we have a long way to go, but yes, and I think it's also linked up to what the point that yesterday Deepa had raised, when you say the power, it's an issue of power, and power is linked to money. And and the producer, the role of the producer. So that's what Deepa was saying. There should be more women producers. So maybe that then will push, for reprioritizing. And this kind of systemic devaluation that is there. Of women's labor, their dignity. Hopefully that will also get shaken up. Anyway, so that's one point. of course, I have a round of questions for all of you as follow-up, but maybe I'd like to throw it open for the floor because we have another 10-15 minutes. Jessica? Yeah. So if there are any questions for any of the panelists?
For the panel. I found all of you very interesting, and I'm not really into cinema right now, but I just enjoyed very much the conversations and things like that. So what I wanted to actually ask, which struck me, and it's something that I find is across industries, and maybe Umang especially might want to address this, is that given your background with the protest and things like that, still people are hiring you and things like that. You would think that if all are male directors and male producers and things like that, they wouldn't be so open, especially if you're having protests that called, I don't know, slut walk and things like that. So the fact that they're still hiring people like this, even in Mumbai or whether it is in Delhi or Karnataka or whatever, does say that there is still a lot of openness to women. So I think that's positive. But at the same time, like, how do you negotiate that what is your response to, they're open, but at the same time, you're facing these difficulties. So how come people are still hiring based on your background like that, So that's what I'm I don't know if you got me, but I'm kind of confused about how that works out for you.
So I'll tell you
Before,
something about...
1 second, Umang, before you respond, if there are a bunch of questions, maybe we can just take them and then divide it among the speakers. Yeah.
Question is for Anjali. I wanted to know her thoughts about the IC in Kannada film industry. IC, Internal Committee under Bosch.
Any? Yeah.
Force that can enforce payments by producers. Yeah, legally. I mean, otherwise you're sitting on a contract. You as an individual. Yeah. But it's like. Thank you. Yeah, we need women lawyers.
Yes, okay. My question was primarily regarding the fact that in the film industry, people who are directors or actors as women are referred to as female directors and female actors, whereas the male counterparts are just directors and actors. So I've also noticed that it's also important to say female directors in some cases because people always associate it with a man. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it should be used as a female director or just a filmmaker without having to associate gender with it?
Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, yeah. Umang, you want to respond and then?
Yeah, I'll just quickly take the first question, which was about like how come I'm still getting hired with my background. So a bit about my journey actually. I think when I started off, I was very focused towards only working in the developmental space, and I spent the first few years working in sex education. Mostly related to media filmmaking in the gendered space. That's where I made Sharmila. I worked at this place called Agents of Ishq. If you don't follow that channel, please go to Instagram. It's like the greatest, the greatest space for talking about your inner lives, related to sexuality and everything. Yeah, really beautiful space. The change kind of happened only a few years ago for me, where I kind of felt that I wanted a seat at a bigger table. So which is why, and I just say this that I don't think people who are hiring me in the mainstream are aware of my background as a protester and a feminist. I kind of throw it to them after I'm in. I don't, and I have done job interviews where I'm like, I'm a passionate feminist and feminism is like my, like my core, this thing. But it's just not that I'm trying to avoid it or disguise it, but it just doesn't come up anymore. I'm a working professional. There are many, many aspects, and my ideology, although very strong, is just a part of it. So I am getting hired based on my past work. And I've also, I think just in terms of negotiating these spaces again, I am kind of learning that it is about, again, like there is no need for me to carry that front and forward until it comes up. When there are script discussions where I'm seeing a problem, it comes up very strongly that this scene is problematic. But otherwise, when you're making a crime show, it doesn't, it's not, it's important to stay committed to your ideas where you are able to implement them, in the sense that when we were hiring a team, I was conscious about the diversity, but when I'm working on a script about 7 homicides, it sometimes it didn't really come up, or when I was hiring, it didn't really come up that I had done protests and stuff like that. And I think, in fact, that was one of my big learnings, that, instead of always wanting to work on shows which were gender front and forward, I wanted to work on shows where, the idea was to just have mass appeal. And then when I see a sexism problem in the script or in the crew, I'm actually able to make a difference, not because I've been hired for my ideology, but because I've been hired as a producer. And then I use that power to influence decisions, sometimes not successfully, but at least I get to speak, and sometimes I succeed. And about just very quickly on the female director thing, I think very similarly associated, there is a huge tokenism problem. I have constantly seen you will see, I think anyone who's working in the circuit will always see need a female AD requirement. There are special female AD requirements that go out, and they are for very specific female purposes. And which has to do with dealing with an actress or dealing with costume, or it has to do with, we have 2 larger male crew and 2 actresses, so एक लड़की को ले जाते हैं, थोड़ा comfortable हो जाएगा. So I think again those are very, very so it is confusing whether you want to take a female AD role or not. Sometimes it's about getting a foot in the door. But I'm hoping eventually, and where we are wanting to go, is for it to not matter. Unfortunately, bigger opportunities like direction, producer, heading spaces are still considered opportunities for us, which is why the female tag comes in. But I mean, that's the battle to fight.
Thanks, Uma.
So to talk about the ICC thing, honestly speaking, I'm not very well versed with it. I wish I was. I do know a little bit. I think committees like this and people who are headlining it, like Kavita Lamkesh, especially Shruti Hariharan, she's a great actress. I had the privilege of working with her when I was an AD. She was the actress, and I remember being awestruck because she knew 4 languages. So she was doing a Kannada film, but she was talking to the camera department in Malayalam. And I just remember thinking she's so smart and so beautiful. And a few years after that is when she had spoken up about some incident that happened. And it's really, really, really sad, the kind of treatment that she got for it. She was kicked out of film, she was spoken about very badly. I think committees like this really implement a lot of faith for young actors like me. Because I now know where to go. I may not know much information about what's exactly happening, but I do know that when something goes wrong and something makes me feel really uncomfortable and it's my choice to speak up, I know where to go, I know who to contact. And I do know for a fact that the women on that committee especially, they have all been people who seem very open. They don't seem like they're going to judge me, they don't seem like they're going to hate on me. So that for a young actor really helps, and I think committees like that are very much necessary because, see, I'm an outspoken girl, quote unquote outspoken girl, so I may not think twice or thrice before speaking about something, but I do know a lot of actors who are my friends who think a lot before they even say something. Like, even to say no, you're told, right, to shut up, like you're just more attractive that way, so you're constantly going to try to shut up. So I know that committees like this will help them all the more. I'm extremely privileged to come from a very privileged background where my parents are lawyers. So I'm aware of what my rights are and how I'm not desperate to work and I won't just be okay with anything. But women sometimes are groomed in this industry to be like, just be okay with it, just be okay with it. You want to get what you want, right? So just be okay with it. Just smile and move on. So I think committees like this are very, very important. And I specifically want to speak about Shruti Hariharan because I'm a big fan of her, and I think what she's done is great. And I think the treatment that she got for what she spoke about is so unfair on 100 different levels. And I know for a fact that no one even asked the man straight up, hey, did you do it? Because it was a given that she's lying, right? Because he was more famous than she was. It's really sad because after that as well, I remember someone saying, hey, they're just going to say me too, me too, me too for everything. So just be careful. Like, be careful of these feminists. So yeah, at least for me as a young actor, I'm really glad there are committees like this in the Kannada film industry. Though not as aggressive as the other ones as they should be, it's still there, and I hope with time it changes, and I hope with young actors and technicians, I hope we also get to be a part of it and change. And the female director part, I recently told someone I'm an actor, and they were like, actress? I was like, no, I'm an actor. Why is there a gender like assigned to a profession, right? Like even a cricketer is called female cricketer, like female, like everything is female. Unfortunately, but I think people like us can slowly change it by addressing ourselves. Because I specifically say I'm an actor, because I used to say I'm an actress until I read a book that was like, it was about something, and I was like, that's true actually. Why do I keep saying actress? So at least if I say I'm an actor and someone questions it, maybe I could change their point of view. So I think change doesn't happen overnight, but I think we can be a big part of it. Even I used to say female director or female editor, but I'm now more conscious about what I say because we just assume it, right? Because we're just around it. So I think change comes from us, and I hope we can slowly change it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question for you, follow-up question to what you regarding payment. What about the issue of because we say equal pay, pay for equal work, that's one cornerstone to say that why this wage disparity on the basis of gender. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I have always wondered that why is it that the female actors get paid lesser, across industries. Very rarely has it been that an actress ever got paid more than a male actor. If you look at the history of cinema in India, it would be difficult to find. There may be one or two, but that's it. It never happened thereafter. It's been like that. And I'm saying, can there be some sort of stipulation where it's said very clearly that for the second rung of actors, right? You are in a character role, for example. Your payment will not be below a certain amount, and that amount needs to be decided as a percentage in terms of what the lead roles are charging. Because it's like the industry is being run dry by a handful of stars who are charging the earth. We saw this happening. We saw this happening at an earlier point in time, where the stars were coming late to the sets and producers actually sank. The industry was reeling from this kind of behavior. And now I see there's a different kind of thing that's happening with stars dictating what they will get, the entourage, what it demands, how much has to be paid to them. And on the other hand, for example, if I look back, simple thing like someone was talking about toilets, Pina was talking about toilets. And so I have never taken my own hairstylist or makeup man. I've said, you know the subject, you know which makeup man is going to do justice to this character in terms of makeup and hairstyle. So that's fine with me. You get me your person. I'm not going to fuss with it. And so usually the hairstylist would ask me, can I use the loo in the vanity, the van that I would be assigned? And I would say, yeah, of course, go ahead. And I always wondered, something was amiss. Something was not okay. Luckily, this child she felt the freedom to ask me. And she didn't get, told off. So it was a happy situation. But what happens to that young girl out there who cannot, or who's walking from Film City, she's walking home in the night. She might be an extra, she might be an AD, she might be a hairstylist, she might be an assistant makeup person or a makeup person. What happens to her? She's walking that road alone, and there was a time when it wasn't well lit. Even now, I don't think it's terribly well lit. So these, just to be thoughtful, and I think the men folk of the industry need to tap into their feminine side and get more sensitive, while we women are finding the masculine side of ourselves and we are trying to negotiate. I find that it is very delicate ground, both for men and women, because somewhere if you look at the younger generation, then I say now falling in love has become a very difficult thing. It's like if I look, it might be construed as staring. And so every young boy is going like that, while the old fogies are hitting upon the young girls. I mean, it's just gone askew. So I think we need to, so it's not just about the terminology, but I think it's about how we hold ourselves. Because there is vocabulary. I can be a potter and I can say I'm a potter. Right? Or I can say I'm a farmer, and nobody asks female farmer, male farmer, nothing. But certain words, proprietor had a feminine version, proprietrix, yeah, and actor, actress. So yeah, these demarcations were there. Now those are getting blurred as we are entering each other's territory, and I'm saying, can we? Jargon is there, okay, it has its place, terminology has its place, but the essence of it, if we can find our balance with that and tread this delicate ground with sensitivity for each other, I think that would make all the difference.
Ma'am, I actually do want to say something about the pay parity. So, I understand the concept of when an actor who's more famous is bringing in more people. So of course it's a business when you're bringing in, like for example, if I'm bringing in 5,000 people and you're bringing in 50,000 people, I get the pay disparity. Luckily, I think it's changing a bit because, for example, it's kind of silly, but I did an ad recently, a few months ago, where I was paid more than the male actor because I had more followers on Instagram.
That's happening, yeah.
So I think, it's definitely changing, but there are also different things like the actor who's as new as me or as old as me gets a better room or a better car. Like I've got a Swift Desire to go from here to Bangalore or wherever we were shooting, and the actor's got an Innova. Why? So things like that, they're still, it's still happening, but there are also quite a few changes as of recently. So it's nice to see that, and I think that's also because that ad shoot that I worked on, the producer was a female producer. I think that really helps a lot because, like you said, the feminine and the masculine side, it needs to coexist in each person. And when I speak up or when I fight about something, I was told, you were screaming like a guy, you were getting angry like a guy. Why? There's an emotion for, like, there's a gender for an emotion now. So in many ways, I do think it's changing, and I think our generation is really changing, and I'm so glad it's because of discussions like this. It's because of people like the three of you have really, really paved the way, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Anjali. I think that's the hope, and I think that's what Vijayamma also was saying yesterday, that it is really the younger generation that is speaking another language, claiming space in a very different way.
We're also reaping the benefits of the hard work that you guys have done, honestly.
I also wanted to say something about unions. That now in the contracts, they're even putting a clause saying that you will not seek recourse to your to finding justice through the union that you may be part of. Yeah. Yeah, they're putting it that
That's why
way.
your clause was so important.
Yeah, that's why I said I want my fundamental rights in place. You write whatever nonsense you want in that contract. Last clause, I want fundamental rights in place. But then that didn't happen.
Yeah, well, I suppose we need to close, but Beena, if you can just come in to give us the final word and final words of wisdom. Now that you've, through this, what has happened in Kerala, like I said, it has set off a lot of changes, hopefully ripples of changes. How can one sustain it? One is, of course, through collectives, collectivization, unionization, but then there's a backlash to that too, as Pity was saying. So, how do you think one can sustain this process of change, which is already also there, as Anjali was also saying, at an individual level, I think there is a lot of more assertion and claiming that's happening. But structurally, how can one ensure, that these spaces are there?
I'm sorry, my sort of internet was a little down, so but, just listening to everybody, I think, oh God, everybody's journey is so similar. And we've just had so many years of silence, basically. I think that was one of the first things we discovered with WCC is that what is this silence? Why have we never spoken to each other? Because a lot of it comes out of the fact that we were all thinking it's only our problem, or there's also the whole gaslighting, I'm like this, maybe I'm too intellectual, maybe that's why these people don't come to me, or whatever, I don't look good, or I'm not adjusting enough. So I think a very important thing is to talk to each other, which is now happening a lot. And I think, when I hear Anjali's experiences, and I know Shruti well, I think this is the most important thing. Talk about your experiences. Open up to each other at least about your experiences. Believe that the law is on your side. That don't think that, it takes very long. And for example, this case with the actress who was abducted, it's so sad. It's taken 7 years, but look at the changes because she spoke out. Because she spoke up, the change, has come. There has come. So this is what I would say, that basically we have to hold each other. We have to believe in our rights. We have to believe that this space is as much ours as anybody else's. There is something very important to hear, when in a very masculine space of telling stories, it is very important that you have women's voices, and therefore you need to claim that space yourself. That is the very important thing, that nobody is understanding that, this whole storytelling is so masculine today. It's frighteningly masculine in Indian cinema. And therefore we have to, if we have a sense of responsibility, we have to tell other stories, and we have to claim that space for ourselves. So, everybody is standing on each other's shoulders and holding each other tight and going forward. Yeah. So the fights that we do, if it affects Anjali and Umang and opens their doors or opens their minds to the kind of thing. Just listening to Anjali, we've heard so many stories like this as WCC. And it's so, if you don't know how to deal with it, stress, your life just falls. It is ruining. For example, when she talks and she says, no, I dealt with it. I know how to deal with it. So yeah, I think this is an important sort of moment, because women are talking about the experience, and it's not about being anti, this fear that we are sort of anti-men, or is not the point. The point is that there is genuine pain. There has been genuine discrimination. I mean, I'll just tell you that, for example, I'm working on a project on the Film Institute, and we spoke to a lot of women, and every one of them told us that at the interview to join the premier institute of the film industry, the film Pune Film Institute, every one of the women were told, "Why do you want to be a camera person? You are taking a good seat of a boy. Why do you want to be an editor?" Everyone spoke of this. And this is a premier institution set up those great days when we thought we were building the nation. And this is the attitude towards women. So so it's very basic, it's very fundamental, and I really believe it is us who have to change this narrative, because I just yesterday watched a video, and the video is about these women at work. One is an actress, one is in a shop, one is in IT, etc. And each of them have very supporting husbands. So the daughter calls and says, "Mama, I broke my finger." She says, "No, Appa's at home, he'll take care." But the child there's always the sense that the responsibility is the women's. Every single time I have been at work where it is so traumatic, that because the fact is that you have gone off to work, you have to work, your child is suffering, So this whole notion in the family, starting from the family, it's not enough to say I'm washing one or two dishes or I'm cooking one or two meals. It's not that. It's how do you genuinely share and understand this unit of the family. So, I really believe that conversations are important. I think it's not about dividing society. In fact, I think it's bringing society together in a very healthy way. Not to imagine that we are, and I will say a very outrageous thing. I think we have to legitimize the F word, which is feminism.
Yeah, I suppose that is the final word, Vinaya. So thank you so much, everybody. I think there's enough that all of you have given us to chew over as we go for lunch. And yeah, we should take these conversations forward together and wherever we go. And I think that's what is important, that wherever we are, wherever we go, that we continue these conversations in a convivial way. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Madhu.
Thank you, Bina. Thank you, Umang. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank you, Anjali.
Also.
And thank you to all those people who make this possible. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.